everybody's okay. So, and at 12:30 we'll take a little break while I start the broadcast officially, and I'll do the recording, as I always record the broadcast. So that's what we're doing. So right now we'll be setting up some resource materials that I'll be using in the transcourse of this broadcast, and I'll entertain some questions if anyone has it, but other than that, let's go at full speed ahead. And let's see. As I said before, I'm not a drawer, I'm not an artist, so I basically, until someone submits artwork for me to use, I'll be getting stuff from Pixabay here, my favorite source for free, brilliant works of others, which can be used. They're commercial license, no copyright and whatnot, so royalty free, etc., open Creative Commons, etc. So, and then also during the transcourse of the week, although I did have this before when we first started the work on SYMBOLUM, I'm sure there's a master file someplace. It's probably in my older PC, which is off here, but it's off to my side here, and I'll have to turn it on, switch it on, and look for some of the old material. I had done a few chapters, or at least started to work on them. So, and what we did was, the whole point was to go into the Bible. We're doing mini games. Estamos haciendo juegos mini. Y esos juegos mini combinados crea el juego SYMBOLUM, que es el juego universal. Y entonces lo que voy a hacer este mes es Genesis. So the challenge is to finish this month, and so we're going verse by verse in Genesis chapter 1 to identify or isolate the trading card graphics. In other words, which graphics, what phrases and things in Genesis 1 we're going to translate into a trading card for the use in the game. Now, so I have a partial listing. I don't think I don't think it's showable to you here. Let me see if I can. Let's see if it does become showable. Not that I can see, but I can tell it's not showable. Let me see again. Take another look at that. Okay, so it is showable to you. Good. Okay. And so basically, this is the listing so far, and the key here is to get the Bible verses, get the Bible verses to match up. Was I using? Okay, here's King. So it's to get these Bible verses here to match up with the. Let me bring this back over here. To give us an idea of the graphics that we need to get for our trading card game. So, entonces estoy verso a verso identificando los diferentes tarjetas o gráficas que se va a utilizar o necesitar para poder crear o formar unos ideas y recursos gráficos para el juego. Now, So these are the resources so far. We have an issue here between verse 6 and 7, which is going to be common. Now, what happens is that many times you're not going to have anything particular for a particular verse. So that happens. Now, I'm going to look at it again so we can look at it together so you can see what the issue is. Verse 6 says, "And God said, let there be a firmament." See, so it presents a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. So for 6, we have the firmament in the midst of the waters. So that is one graphical element. The other potential things was to put a firmament there, but since 7 says, "And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so," what really could be done for 7 is actually the firmament itself. So I'm going to put that there, firmament. Okay. And verse 6 has the firmament in the midst of the waters. So we have the firmament in the midst of the waters, right? And then, and I'll put in parentheses so that, when we're developing, not that I wouldn't remember, but just for you, for your sake that you're watching, it is dividing. So that the graphic will be one of dividing the waters above from below, like that. So that's just a reminder, a note, and it's really for your benefit, not for mine, because I know what the firmament in the midst of the waters is. So, and then verse 7 is the firmament itself that God created. God made the firmament. And basically what the firmament is, for those who don't know, firmament is the atmosphere, the atmosphere where we're breathing, that we're here, right? And so then the ocean is the water below, and there's water, underneath the earth and all that. That's water below us. This is the atmosphere that we have, and then there's water above. At least in the created world or the reformed world, there was more water above the firmament than you see today. So today you look up and the only thing that's left is really water vapor, and that's trapped in the clouds, right? So when you see clouds, that's water, remnants of water vapor. But before, there was a high concentration of water above, and the firmament was like a bubble in between. So it was almost like an Oreo cookie, water above, water below. Okay? So that's the way it was until the flood. When the flood happened, all that heavy water came down. It condensed. It could have been, the scientists suspect that the earth at that time was like, when you see Venus, all you see is clouds, all you see is cloudy atmosphere. You don't see any clearness in the atmosphere. It was possible that the earth was like that. It was totally covered in clouds of water vapor. Just saturated with water as a vapor. It also accounts for the longevity, like Adam living for 900 years would be accounted for by very, very high humidity in the air, in the atmosphere. So that seems to coincide with some thinking about that. And I'm trying to locate my clock here. Okay, so I keep time. It's almost ready to do the break for the for the broadcast to begin, officially. So there was waters above, water below, and we're not giving a state. Also, some people just say, they'll look at it and he says water is water, but yeah, water could be frozen, it could be vaporized, right? Steam, vapor, as a gas. The Bible says water, and all of that. There's water in 3 different states. It doesn't tell us what state it was. It's just telling us that He created the firmament, and it had water above one of the 3 states, and water below one of the 3 states, or all of the 3 states, depending where it was, right? So that's all we know about the waters above and below, and the firmament that God created. Okay, so we're going to give the official opening right now to the program. We'll continue after the introduction. Bless you. This is the Reverend Dr. Gilberto Rosado. Dios le bendiga. Este es Reverendo Dr. Gilberto Rosado. Welcoming you to another broadcast. At this hour, we have our bilingual broadcast, our teaching in English and Spanish. So we ask that you be patient as we translate live on the fly between languages. Esta es la hora que damos la enseñanza en inglés y español y pedimos que tengas pues paciencia mientras que traduzcamos de un idioma al otro. Aproveche y aprende el otro idioma. While we're at it, you can learn the other language as well. Es un beneficio de sintonizarse con nuestro ministerio. It's a benefit, an added benefit I should add, of tuning in to our ministry. All right, welcome back. We had started a little earlier because we're doing some work here, and I didn't want to wait till 12:30 to get started. So it's a lot of work involved in developing these games, even though this is not like a video game, at least not yet. And but still, a lot of the planning and getting things together is still required at this level. So. To be more productive, we had started a little earlier. And I've been making some notes while we've been away waiting for the intro to end. I made a few adjustments. This idea, though, came to me like last night. Anoche esta idea me vino a la mente anoche, so ahora fue que lo escribí aquí. Because the also as God goes on from verse 5, and God called the light day, right? So, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. So last night what came to me was to create a special type of card. One of the cards would be the days. So it would be the first day, one card, the second day, third day, fourth day. And because these cards obviously would refer to the things that occurred during each day of the respective day, the first day, the second day, and whatnot. So there's different types of gameplay. Now I'm talking about game mechanics. What are game mechanics? Game mechanics is how the game plays. What's the point in the game? What's the challenge, or what's the goal? And what do people do? The players do to play the game. Actually, how is the card used? What elements are used and how they're used, etc., etc. And the rules of the game are developed, with the game mechanics. En la mecánica del juego, que es lo que estoy hablando ahora, se define con los elementos en el juego, como que el usuario o jugador va a hacer para operar el juego, que es el proceso de jugar el juego. Se define las metas, se define quién gana, right? Cómo se gana el juego, se define entonces también las reglas del juego, right? So todo define el juego, eso crea el ambiente del juego y se formaliza, como decir, el juego, teóricamente, right? Y entonces eso se pone a prueba. You test it. It's a theory. It's like a dream list of this game works like this and this and that. But it's also evolving, because as you play the game, as you put the game together and you test it, you play it, you have people play it, there's always going to be some things that you're going to fix, improve, make harder, make easier, whatever, it depends. But this is where you basically want to start. And so last night, it came to me also that the days of the week, first day, second day, third day, fourth day, because God didn't call them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's not what God said. God said for the first day, the second day, the third day, the fourth day, etc. So that these, and since each day has its peculiarities, its proclivities, the things that God created during those days, particularly, it seemed to me like a good thing to import into the game. And even it creates even different games. So even in the mini game, for example, you can have a little quick game, like if you're people are have a few moments, they're waiting to be called on a line, or something like that, and you can play a quick game of like the days of the week, like the first, second, third, fourth, fifth day, and there's different games you can play just with that card alone, those cards, the first, the second, the third. We'll see who has this card, blah blah blah. So even though we have this mini game in the Genesis chapter 1, within that game there's little tiny games that can be played with those cards, that are not the whole Genesis 1 game. For example, plus the fact that the Genesis 1 game in itself, it's I can see it already that it can have different types of gameplay, just simply because of its nature. It has great amplitude. There's so many different ways to play, different types of games that you can play with it because of the great amplitude of information, of inferences, and the subject matter, the creation of or the reformation of the heavens and the earth, as is described in the Bible. So it lends itself to many different types of gameplay. I've used this teaching also in Genesis 1 to discuss a lot about other things in life, the general things in life. Genesis 1, it's the beginning of all the issues that there are here. So like I said, it has a great amplitude. You can probably throw something up in the air with different topics, and use this Genesis 1 card to and the topic to define a certain type of gameplay. It's totally possible, because once you have the understanding of what these symbols mean, and what they infer, and how you can extrapolate from them, then almost anything can be used to formulate a game. So the cards here, the first day, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and the seventh day, in and of themselves can be a mini game in and of themselves, and then those cards can be used in a combination with the rest of the Genesis card, the chapter 1 cards, for different types of gameplay like that. So there's different things we can do. That is too early now to really start defining those little mini games. We'll do that later, but for right now we're going straight through the verses, and we're just making a note to add in that the day itself, the numbered day, as numbered day cards in this grouping that we're doing now. All right, so we got 7 and 8. The second day we've added, and now verse 9. God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear." So here we have the creation of with verse 10. So let's do 10, and we have the dry land, right? Dry land, which is earth, right? And the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And then the gathering together of waters and called seas. So those are two cards there, the land and the sea card. And then for 9, we have the gathering together of the waters, because that was the action. Gathered together unto one place. Gathering of the water. Okay, so that is 9's action, and so that will be depicted. And then 10, for 10 you have the earth, the dry land, and then you have the gathering of the waters. Okay, so estamos aquí en el verso 10, hemos identificado la tierra seca, siendo la tierra, y le juntó los aguas y lo llamó mares, y Dios dijo que estaba bueno todo. All right, so and then for 9, the gathering of the waters. Entonces para 9 estamos poniendo para el 9 el juntamiento o la reunión de las aguas para el 9. All right. So 9 and 10 is done. 11, and God said, "Let the earth bring forth grass." See, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after its kind. So there's 3 things here in verse 11. So el verso 3 tiene 3 cosas allí juntos, right? You have earth bring forth grass. Okay. Now, why don't I just put grass here? Because simply the Bible's not saying, a lot of people will debate me on this, but it's not saying that he creates the grass here. And it's using the words that imply that the grass is coming out of the grass, now out of the earth. Now, la palabra aquí dice que let me look for this in Spanish here. Let me get this in Spanish. En Spanish. Un momento, voy a buscarlo en español para facilitar esta parte aquí. Okay, so all right, so produjo, so sea, produzca la tierra, ¿viste? Produzca la tierra hierba verde, hierba que dé semilla, right? Y árbol de fruto. So, aquí está, nosotros decimos que Dios creó, porque lo que pasa es que la idea es que todo esto es la creación. So the ideation here is that the assumption is that all of this is the creation. When you assume that all of Genesis 1 is the creation of, so when you see let the earth bring forth grass, you automatically interpret or understand it to mean that God created the grass. See? It's only because you are told, look for this, you are told, well, in some of your Bibles, and when people teach the Bible, right, they'll say that this is the creation of God. This is how God created the heavens and the earth. Okay? So, of course, well, what else could it mean? Bring forth. What else could bring forth mean? Cuando se te dice que todo Génesis 1 es la creación, pues entonces cuando dice la palabra producir, que produzca la tierra, ¿qué es lo que usted va a pensar? Que esto es la creación, este es Dios creando. But if you read the scripture, si tú lees la escritura y tú conoces la idea de Dios, a lot of people don't understand the way you need to read the Bible. I'm going to explain something to you. The people don't understand something. The concept of God. People need to understand what the concept of God is. El concepto de Dios. The concept of God involves the characteristics that are revealed throughout Scripture about God. And what we see throughout Scripture, when God does things and what He demands or what He's asking to be done, it does not allow for chaos, for disorder. Okay? Nothing God told Israel was chaotic or disorderly. He didn't say, go, just do whatever you want to do, just go. And don't worry, it'll work out in the end. He never said that. And the things that God does are not helter-skelter. Y las cosas que Dios hace no son, como se dice en un refrán, dice helter-skelter, que es una de las traducciones de la palabra sin vacío en el hebreo. Pero vemos que eso no se ve en ninguna otra parte de la escritura que Dios hace, ni se ve. So, helter-skelter is not something that is associatable with God, because all of the scriptures indicate through what God does that He does things perfectly. He is a God that demands perfection. He says, be perfect as I am perfect. Even God says that He is perfect. And He tells us to be perfect. So how can a perfect God do helter-skelter over here? See? So nothing in the Bible supports the idea that God creates the heavens and the earth, but that is not, it's helter-skelter. Nothing supports that. This would be the only verse in Scripture that supposedly shows God doing something disordered and not perfect and out of whack. It's interesting, though, that the people who most often say that, yes, that God makes things disordered and imperfect are people who don't believe in God to begin with. In other words, they're highlighting, there's no God, even He doesn't even do things perfectly. A question came in, are there any parts of the Bible that no longer apply to us? The Bible covers everything in life and in death. So, you can say, what part of the Bible would you be talking? You have to be specific. The Bible you cannot use generalities in the Bible. So I'm respecting your mind and the question that it came from. But you need to be more specific on what exactly are you talking about, because I can only guess. But the Bible itself, in terms of its purpose, it's still 100% purposeful. So it is 100% applicable for its purpose. Now, what you understand that purpose to be, that would determine a lot of things. So, and that's how you're judging what's true or what's not true. Be more specific. Are there any of God's laws that are immoral? Or are God's laws moral by definition? He is the definition of what is good. What is good is the will of God. And you cannot go by our own definition. And that may seem like out there, but God is out there. He's not a man. So that's a difficult question. It's not easy for us to sit with, knowing that good is defined externally, even from the universe itself that we live in. But if God created the heavens and the earth, He is the definer. He created everything. So, and in a way, that's a good thing, because there is it's like how do we use science? A temperature. How do you know what the temperature is? Do you go by how you feel? Is that how we go by judging the temperature? No, we can't do that, because everyone has a different level, right? And your feelings are subjective. But what do we all do? We go and look at a thermometer, because that's outside of us. So God is outside of our reality, and so therefore makes him the definitive judger of that. So when Leviticus 25:44 instructs us to buy slaves from heathen nations around us, how is this moral? Because at the time, the slaves were employees. You have a negative view of slavery from today's perspective, and it's true that slavery of recent history, and when I mean recent history, I'm talking about the American slaves and throughout many ages before that, that slavery was a corruption of man. It's not what God gave to man to do. Slavery was a necessary evolution of employment. To understand this, you have to understand that the civilizations were agricultural. Everybody had a piece of land. Everybody was a farmer or a herder. It is only when people started to live together that, like what happens today. I have a friend who has a farm, but all around him you have homes, and then the city is causing him trouble because they want him to stop raising animals. He can't have a farm anymore, and that's when he brought it as a farm. See, so basically, if you're living off the land and you're a farmer, they're telling him that he can't be a farmer anymore. He has to go get a job. He has to become what? He has to become a slave. That's what they're telling him. Now, we have modern terms. We don't whip our employees anymore, although a lot of people complain about their bosses, but that's the whole point. That's the point I'm trying to make. That originally, the slave was an employee contracted. And the reason that a person became a slave originally was to pay off some debt that they incurred. They lost the farm, fire burned the crops, whatever. They had a crop failure. They had to pay, what they owed on the seed and whatnot. So they had to work for somebody else. That is what started slavery and employment, because that's what it was. Now people are the evil ones. They're the ones who started abusing their brother and being insensitive, right? I'm right and you're wrong, like the people in this debate often do. And that's what caused the abuse, not God, man. Yeah, it's a commandment. Of course it is. because the point was that they had to follow God's instruction, because the people of God were supposed to be free. See, not bonded to other people. So that was a teaching. Remember that God is always teaching. There's a teaching involved. But in every moment, man shows his corruptive character. And overall, that's the main teaching that God wants to point out. He's giving you a good instruction, but that you're twisting it into something evil. And that's what man does. You either do it yourself in trying to follow the instruction, religious folks, or the people who are not religious and who have a condemning spirit or a judging spirit, they use it to condemn. But either way, both sides are wrong. But God is not wrong. God is right. What he was teaching was a good thing. The original employees were slaves. So were they free to quit? They agreed to work for X amount of time. Now, what God instituted was the Sabbath year. That's from God, not from men. Now, in 7 years, at the 7th year, the slave had to go free. Had to go free, period. That's not what you see in your knowledge of slavery, is it? Or your employment model today. The guy works there for 20, 50 years, and all he gets is a watch at the end, right? A retirement. That's not what God wanted either. So God's plan was that you guys work for somebody else. Okay, the 7 years is the top. That's the Sabbath. And so you will let your slave free. And that was it. Now the slave could choose to stay. So that's also there in the Bible. Why would the Bible say that the slave could choose to stay if it wasn't a good thing? You know, so again, you have to consider the whole Bible. That again, you know, you have to look at the conditions of thinking, reasoning, and life back in the day. You're looking at it from today's perspective. But in ancient times, these were children. They were like children. And so they would think like children too. You got to understand, there's no high intelligence factor here. There weren't people here reading library books. You were talking about a different world, a different way of living. You were talking about primitive man, okay? So even if you don't believe in God, you believe in cavemen, right? So someone had to teach the cavemen how to do some new tricks. So let's be real. If you don't have God, then you have a caveman, and somebody got to teach him how to eat correctly at the table. You know, I'm being facetious, but you know, some of you guys think that these people were like New Yorkers or regular folks today. They weren't. They didn't know how to do things right. Did they come out with a college degree so they can build a pyramid? They knew how to do that. People don't know how to build a pyramid today. You know, so let's be real. And they have degrees and engineers. They're very intelligent people. They can't build a pyramid today. So, you know, let's be real. The first thing, when you come here, you got to be real. Don't come with any of this fantasy island here, because we got to talk for real. Only Hebrew slaves were let go after 7 years. No Hebrew slaves were your property for life and passed to your children when you die. To try to make this like English, the Hebrew slave was supposed to be set free after 7 years. And if they had children, if they took a wife from your slaves, well, of course they had to stay. If they wanted to, they could leave. But if they chose to stay with their slave family, because that family's a slave family, and that goes into an issue about women. And that goes into a different topic there. But again, the male could go free as long as he wanted to be free. That's it. And everything was about making an agreement. So the first thing was the agreement. That Hebrew slave was not a slave, was not a forced slave. He was agreed to it. It was a contractual agreement. So you can't make it look like he was forced into slavery and he had no option. That's not true. He voluntarily gave himself into slavery. So that's an employment contract. You do the same when you work. When you apply for a job, you are volunteering your time in life. 8 hours a day, whatever it is, for X amount of dollars. The same thing was done back then by the slave. He doesn't get an hourly wage. He got a life wage. He got a contract wage, whatever it was. Some of them got paid right up front so they can pay their bills or pay the farmland, whatever, for their family, whatever was the deal. They got the money and they had to work it off. It was a gentleman's agreement, and that was the way it was. So we see that in the primitive culture. Man was primitive, God was not. These were God's laws, which you said were always moral. And so is it moral to own a person as property and beat them with a rod as long as they don't die in a day or two? Like I said again, there was no education back in those days. So before you come with that argument, you have to provide the case study where the caveman knew how to do work without getting beat. That's what has to first be provided, because as the way I look at evolution, somebody didn't know, everyone didn't go to school and learn how to do things. And if you have children, you can see the difficulty people would have with children, and they go to school. Those children never did go to school. So again, what they don't learn how to live without a teacher, they learn in the school of hard knocks, right? The kids bump their head. Is that fair? Is that moral? When a kid goes underneath a table to pick something up and then just pops his head up? Is that moral that he hits his head on the... No, right? Because he was stupid and he wasn't looking, right? So nature teaches them with a rod, with a worse than a rod, with a tabletop or with a cave wall or with a cliff. Nature don't fool around, right? You better watch where you're walking or you're going to fall down, 500 feet or more. So what are we talking about? What is better, to let the kid fall off a cliff 500 feet to his death, or for me to hit him with a rod? Pay attention to where you're walking. Which one is better? And with that, we'll leave it there. All right. So, estamos contestando unas preguntas. Viene una persona con mucho respeto. And thanks for the question, by the way. Very good. Very good questions. Very good thinking out there. And gracing us with those questions are fantastic. Que viene a preguntar que por qué, si Dios es moral, pues por qué permitió la esclavitud y la penalidad, tú sabes, de castigo a los esclavos y todo eso. Eso nos llevó fuera del tema, pero lo traté de todo modo, porque el pensamiento que todo estaba, porque yo lo miro así como un ateo. Ustedes no creen en Dios, entonces creen en evolución. No había escuela. ¿Quién iba a enseñar a estos hombres a hacer un trabajo bien hecho? ¿Cómo van a saber cómo hacerlo? Que la realidad, la gente tiene que ver la realidad de las cosas y no son como son hoy. Y no voy a decir todo lo que dije en inglés, pero y el hecho que no había escuela en esos tiempos. No había escuela. So, el amo tenía, mira, yo quiero, esto se hace así. Entonces, la única manera que podían enseñar el bruto era castigándolo. Eso no se hace. Nadie te enseñó, pero hay que enseñarte no hacerlo así. Esto es sencillo. Hasta los animales hay que tratarlo así muchas veces, porque no aprende. Ahora hay psicología, ahora se habla, ahora se hace otras cosas, pero en aquello entonces que tenía nada, come on. So, la gente tiene que realizar estas cosas, no pueden estar en contención y debatiendo que Dios es inmoral y todo. No, uno es estúpido. Dios es moral, pero la gente son brutos. Y eso es todo. Eso es la respuesta. So we're here at the 11th day. The earth brings forth grass. So again, the assumption is that this is the creation of God. But we already showed you, and in the scripture, it's clear that so a lack of education justifies God's laws that condone slavery. Again, you're saying slavery as it was a bad thing. You're using slavery as a negative when in the biblical perspective at that time it was the newest thing. It was the blockchain. It's like saying, do you condone gambling? Do you condone gambling? Is gambling good? But that's all the blockchain is right now, Bitcoin, right? But everyone's in it because that's the new thing. This is a silly argumentation. It's just simply silly. So again, you have to make the proper relative perspective and realize that slavery at the time of its inception, which is the biblical times, was a necessary evolutionary process, and it is what brought about employment. Today we would not have employment if it wasn't for slavery. Slavery is the first step from agriculture, owning your own place, having your own business. Slavery is the next step from that, evolutionarily speaking. Now that's not that's not part of my subject right now. The earth can be, in terms of the biblical, what the Bible allows it to be, billions and billions and billions of years old. That's the answer. And getting exactly to the point, right? So let's go there so you can see that. It says, in the beginning. See that? In the beginning. Does it say how many years that was? No. It says in the beginning, en el principio. Porque está preguntando también, entonces, ¿qué edad tiene la tierra? In the beginning. Now, the beginning of what? See? It's before there was heaven and earth. There was nothing. Before there was heavens and earth. And we know that the heavens, we know here, that the heavens include, let's see here, in heaven, right? And so it includes what it says in 16. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. The stars are, as you know, there are suns, there are galaxies, because actually some of the stars you see, they're not stars, they're galaxies. So this was made, okay, as part of the heavens. And so in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. So all of that was the beginning. Now I was saying que todo esto fue en el principio de todo, porque en los cielos, 16, verso 16, incluye las estrellas en el cielo. Y las estrellas no son solamente soles, las estrellas son también galaxias. Eso quiere decir que cuando Dios hizo los cielos, hizo el universo. So in the beginning is before the beginning, there was no universe before the beginning. Simply, in the beginning, God creates the heaven, the universe, and the earth. That is what it says. Now, verse 2, it says there, and the earth was without form and void, helter-skelter, which we know that God does not, which I was saying before, that God does not do. God does not do this. Now, this would be a problem. Esto sería un problema normalmente, porque sabemos que Dios no hace esto. Si no fuera por el hecho que después en la Biblia Dios habla de por qué está así. Now, if it wasn't for the fact that later on in Scripture God addresses, he gives some information about why the earth here is without form and void, right? He provides some substance to the why this is out of order here. We would have an issue, and it would be a valid issue. Atheists, you would have a great issue here. That's a highlight here to have. But unfortunately, fortunately for me, but unfortunately for y'all, God does say what happened in where God is that would cause this situation to occur. Okay? And that was the battle between God's angels, the faithful ones, and the unfaithful ones that followed Lucifer. There was war in heaven, in the heavens, war where God is, okay? And that war resulted in collateral damage, just like any other war. Matter of fact, the angels are in charge. If you read the rest of Scripture, you will also note that the angels are in charge of controlling nature, controlling the weather. They control the universe, the things that happen in the universe. Now, if they are at war, what do you think they will do? If Lucifer is trying to destroy God's angels and God's order, what do you think he'll do? So all that explains this verse 2 here. And it gives us, along with science, time. We can see that this is a long time that many things, evolutionary things, were taking place according to God's plan. But then something made it all disrupted and corrupted it all. The earth was then without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. This is also has been shown scientifically that the earth has gone through a period of being totally covered in ice and in the dark. This was shown by studies of the Antarctic continent, and the ice. And so they have found the evidence that life was preserved in a condition of total ice coverage and total darkness through that research. So that directly correlates with verse 2, that happened. The presence of God above the waters, that's, you can debate about that till doomsday. But the fact that the earth was in this state, that is becoming more and more a scientific fact as more and more research is uncovering. All right, and it fits with all the other indicators of ice ages and calamities, catastrophes that ended, the different ages of the evolutionary development of the mammals and whatnot, the dinosaurs, etc., etc. Throughout the ages, this fits with it perfectly. that the issue, I'll give you another one, the issue about man. Did man evolve or was he created? Same thing. If the beginning was so long ago, what are the fossils that we find? See, the main issue that evolutionists have, or atheists use against the Christian idea is that how can God create this and then we have bones that say, different? That's not a problem here in this church. I don't have a problem with that. That I saw when I was 8 years old. I figured that one out way back then. Because the issue here was that the evolution is the process. Evolution was the process. La evolución era el proceso y es el proceso de la naturaleza. It is the natural process. The problem is that it was interrupted. That was the issue. Somebody, a bad boy, went and destroyed what God was doing. God was developing something through the evolutionary process. I mean, if you have all the time of eternity, what would you do? Quickly creating stuff is not the way to go, is it? What's the point? What's the rush? People need to think. Why would God rush? ¿Por qué Dios va a avanzarse a hacer las cosas rápidas? ¿Por qué tenemos que pensar que Dios no estaba usando la evolución para desarrollar lo que quería? I mean, that would be fun. Whenever you put something here and you just let it go and see what comes out, And so what is the problem with that? Now, why does it say that God created man? Because it was all messed up. But what's in the earth? See, that's what you need to be looking at. When God starts here in verse 3, cuando Dios empieza en el verso 3, and he says, let there be light, and there was light. So he starts putting things in order. He says things like this, so people don't catch it. Let the earth bring forth grass. Deja que la tierra produzca la hierba verde. La hierba que produce. Let the earth bring forth the fruit tree. What is this bringing forth? How can the earth bring forth? Because it was in the earth already. Hello, from the beginning. So that is why the earth was covered. But what was there before is still there. There was seed there before because there was seed growing before. There was plants before. And there were trees before. And God says, let the earth bring forth, because it's in there already. Until somebody came and messed everything up. Así que estas son cosas que ya estaban en la tierra y que Dios mandó a producirlo ahora que está organizando las cosas, ordenándolo, después que alguien vino a dañar la cosa. So again, these are things that are the issue with the light. How can the sun come up on the fourth day when he said, let there be light in the beginning? Because that's old science. And that's really dumb for anyone even to ask that. Because you know that before the sun can be formed, you have nebula. And as it begins to contract, it produces light. Any baby starting astronomy 101 learns that. So that is light. It is light. We call it light. So, again, some people just not thinking. Not thinking. So, what we have then is enough evidence that shows that evolution is the process, it's the natural process, but man, the modern day man, was created in the image of God. Pero el hombre fue creado en la imagen y semejanza de Dios. Because the evolutionary process was interrupted. Okay? Was interrupted because man was going to survive this catastrophe Ninguno de los dinosaurios lo pasaron. The dinosaurs couldn't survive it. You have mass extinction. Okay? And then in the fossil record, because we got to go by the fossil record, there is a gap. There is a missing link. They're looking for a missing link. There is none. It's simply man was evolving slowly until verse 2 happens with the angels throwing everything around, destroying everything, and killing off everything. And then God puts the devil in his place and the angels. He keeps them around, but he puts them in prison. And then he says, you didn't destroy my work. And all God does was reform the earth, verse 3 through 26, and then at the 26th verse, he creates man in his image. He was doing it through evolution, but now we have to bring it up to make again. God is proving a point, and in that point it has to go against Lucifer and the angels. So you think you messed up my experiment here, what I was doing? You haven't. From the dust of the earth, as God says here, and God said, let us make man in our image, and after our likeness. Vamos a hacer el hombre en nuestra imagen, and let him have dominion over the fish of the sea. So basically, God gave man a big boost from the evolutionary process, which would have been normally developing into man, some type of man. God just brought it right up here and brought man into reality in his likeness and image. And that's what made the difference in terms of what the capability, the senses of man, the capacity of man, and sets up the scenario that the rest of the Bible is based on. Again, very big, very the amplitude here and the profundity is substantive. But the structure of Genesis is right on par with the scientific evidence and the biblical declarations. The issue is that we have to get it straight so that we can understand. Así que tenemos la Biblia, la declaración de la Biblia y la ciencia está muy en armonía. El problema es que tenemos que entender la palabra de Dios correctamente para poder tener este entendimiento muy claro. Aquí no hay contradicciones, no hay problema entre lo que la Biblia dice y lo que la ciencia dice. No hay problema, sino que hay que tener entendimiento. So there has to be understanding. Well, that depends on what you're talking about. Mankind in the image and likeness of God is most probably where they place the biblical timing, which is about 6,000 years. Most probably. But again, that depends what you're using to measure. The same God, this is the problem that you'll have. See, some of the questions that are asked, not that it's a bearing on you. It's not a bearing on you. It's just the nature of the premise of the questions. Where what's happening, if God, let's assume God, you and I assume God started in the beginning, and he started with evolution. Assume that. God is perfect God. Remember, we have to understand who God is. He is perfect. So What would be the difference between man if God would start him in the beginning, and with the man he did, quick microwave man at verse 26? What would be the difference? None. So now, because perfect, his idea was to make perfect man either way, either evolution. Now, since the enemy destroyed everything, now I'm going to bring it up to date. Bring it up here right now, because we're going to start this right now. I'm not going to wait any longer. So the question then becomes, now if we went to study man, what will we see? Well, we will see man through us, right? Until we see a gap, and then we see fossils. But we will see, a gradual development, which for all intensive reasons is man, until we have this gap, and then we have man. I don't know where the gap. We still have to go digging someplace, but that's what we would see, and that's exactly what we see. So, one thing does not negate the other, because at the end of the day, or I should say at the beginning, it is God, the same God who creates the beginning with evolution, that creates man later from the dust of the ground, of the earth. So you will see no differentiation. So those are, you cannot excise God from, you can just eliminate God from the equation, but then you have your gaps, you have the problems of not having that connectivity. And if you consider God, you have then the explanation for those gaps, and nothing really changes. You still have the same evidence. The same evidence against God in many people's minds is the same evidence for God. Because simply it's the nature of reality. The nature of physical reality negates the spiritual. You can't see through the wall. Yet the wall, there's no solid things. You have to understand that there's no solid anything. Everything is energy. When you study science, you get really deep into it, you will understand that everything is energy. It's not solid. So, and then God, what is God supposed to be? He's supposed to be energy. He's supposed to be invisible. It's not a solid, but you're still insisting on solid evidence, and nothing is solid, even in reality, except maybe the thickness of the head skull here, where that doesn't sink in, So again, el problema es que la gente quieren evidencia de Dios. Dios es invisible, es como decir una energía. Y entonces la gente quiere ver evidencia, pero ¿qué? ¿Sólido? Si cuando tú estudias la ciencia, tú descubras que no hay nada sólido. Todo es energía, todo es fuerza de energía, no hay nada sólido. Aunque tú te sientes sólido, pero no es. Entonces, pero demandan que Dios sea sólido, es ridículo. ¿Cómo están pidiendo que Dios sea algo que ni las cosas reales son? Right, porque eso es la limitación de la cabeza. So the only thing that's limited there is really the limited understanding. Because you're asking for God to be something that nothing is. Nothing in the universe is solid. Nothing. Everything is energy and an energy force. That's our science. That's your science and my science. Yet we want God to be a solid so we can see. That's the problem. That's a limited understanding that people have. You have the science, but yet you still don't understand your own science. You don't have to worry about the Word of God. You guys don't understand science, period. So anyway, but in the beginning, God created science too. You see? That's why you're having that issue. Alrighty. So that's good. Now 11, we were at 11. The earth bring forth grass. What was the other things he brought forth? Herb yielding seed. And so we will put that here. And the fruit tree yielding fruit after its kind. So we put the fruit tree. And again, once again, I really appreciate the questions asked. Aprecio mucho las preguntas que se hicieron. We don't often get good questions here on Sunday teaching, but it's a good thing, and we appreciate it so very much. Man, I yielding fruit after its kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth, whose seed is in itself, right? Herb yielding seed, fruit tree. And when you're looking at this, you want to put the seed, because the concept is very important. This concept about the seed in itself, very important. Esto es muy importante, el término que usa aquí, que tenga su semilla. Okay, la fruta que tiene su semilla en sí, la hierba con semilla, que produzca semilla. Muy importante ese refrán. Again, since the purpose of the game is to reinforce teaching and understanding, it's important that we preserve the imagery, which is the seed. That's a very important thing about the seed here. Which is the progenitor of life, the continuance of life. Everything has seed. Well, not everything, but these particular things have seed after its kind. And the evening, morning, and then we have the third day. So we have the third day. Okay. Where are we? With 13 and the third day, right? I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm writing it in the wrong place. So 11 was bring forth grass. So the bringing forth. So 11 and 12 is the other occurrence here, and it's even more different than the verse 7 in the fact that it just repeats. So it's a repetition, 11 and 12. 11 y 12 se repite lo mismo. One was the command, and the other one was the command obeyed. Followed through by the things that he commanded, commanding the earth to bring forth. So then the earth brought forth. Okay, and the earth brought forth. See, it doesn't say, and then again, it's only because you think that, or you were told, or you read the title that says the creation, the beginning, the creation of the earth, that you assume that this is being created at this moment. But we're going to see in a later verse here where you see it. You catch God. You catch God. I'm going to say it like this. You catch God in the trick. Okay, I'm going to show you the trick. But it proves that what I'm saying is absolutely correct. Okay. Now, that was 12. So this was the command. I'm going to put it down here as the command, okay? Just to distinguish it, because we still ought to make the game rules up, right? So we want to preserve as much as the scripture as possible. Así que como esto todavía hemos de hacer las reglas del juego, queremos preservar la palabra de Dios lo más posible. El 11 voy a poner el mandato. Esto es un mandamiento. que la tierra produzca, que la hierba produce su semilla y la fruta. Pero entonces lo que voy a hacer es copiarlo para el 12. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that for 12 and keep 12 as the earth brings forth, and the herb yielding the earth. I'm going to put the earth again. Herb yielding seed, and the earth brings forth fruit tree. So brings forth, the earth brings forth, as opposed to the command. These would be the actions. And then verse 13 is the third day. The third day. Okay, so the third day card is done with that. Now 14, now remember, recuerde la nota que le voy a probar la diferencia entre produzca y creación. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, for seasons, for days and years. So vamos a poner aquí, there will be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and then we will have them for signs, for seasons, for days and years. So here we have quite a number of cards that we can make from here. We'll put in first lights in the firmament. Lights in the firmament. And then we have let them be for signs, para señales. And notice that the first thing on the list is for signs. It's very important. It's not seasons. The first thing wasn't seasons. It wasn't for days or years, because I was in a little back and forth. I'm still engaged in it on Reddit with a studious person who is saying that the Torah, the texts, which some of the texts which were written under a certain guideline, which is referred to as P, the priestly code, the things that priests were most preoccupied with and made sure to have in the Torah, that this whole issue in Torah was about forming the calendar. That was the purpose of it, for this Genesis treatment and all of that. But the funny thing is that the treatment here doesn't begin with seasons, days, or years. It begins with signs. It's signs. Signs are symbols. They're indicators, right? And you can interpret it a lot. There's always, in Hebrew, there's always room for interpretation. But it's always interesting that the first thing that it mentioned the purpose of, because there's a general rule, the first thing is the most important thing. La regla general, cuando se pone una lista de cosas, número uno es número uno. Y es interesante que el número uno aquí es señales, no es sazones, no es tiempos, no es días, no son años, sino lo más esencial, lo más importante, lo primero es señales. So the first priority, the first focus, the weight of importance that is prescribed or ascribed to the lights in the firmament is as signs. Signs are for interpretation. Signs are communication intended to communicate, right? Communication intended to relay information. That's what a sign is. It relays information in a concise way. So that is what the first purpose of the lights in the firmament are, according to the priests. Así que lo primero es este enfoque sobre los señales. Then we have seasons, right? And we have the days, and we'll write down here years. Entonces ponemos ahí en la lista las luces del firmamento, en el firmamento, para señales, para sazones, para tiempos, para días, para años. Now 15, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And so it was so. So on 15, el verso 15, que deja que sean luces en el firmamento para que sean luz, para que den luz. Again, you can look at it literally, and you can look at it, allegorically. It works either way because they're for signs. And then if it gives light upon the earth, it gives understanding upon the earth. That's an allegorical treatment of it. Light upon the earth. Oh, you can write a treatise on this, the effect of the starlight on the development of the human conscience. You can do that. That's a doctoral thesis right there. Así es una tesis doctoral aún. El impacto de la luz de las estrellas en el desarrollo de la conciencia humana. Eso es un tesis doctoral. Porque y eso es lo que te está diciendo aquí. Que la luz sobre la tierra. Sabemos que las estrellas, ¿sí? Las estrellas no dan tanta luz, pero están en la lista. So, tenemos que incluirlo como algo de impacto en la noche, pero ¿en qué forma? So we have to admit that since stars are included, as you will see in verse 16, even though stars don't light up the night for you, they're little pin what do you call it, like pin dots of light in the skies. I mean, does it really help light up a road in the middle of the night? Not like the moon. I guess if you had no moon and that's all you had was the stars. I've been out in the camp, and a starry night really doesn't light up anything, except you can see where the sky is. At least you see that. So then what is the impact of having these stars lighting upon the earth? You see, so that begs the question. Así que la pregunta viene que yo he estado en el campo y he visto la estrella. Cuando no hay luna, se ve las estrellas nada más. El campo está oscuro, la noche no se ve nada. So, la estrella en realidad no da suficiente luz para usted no chocarte con un árbol la noche, quizá. Pero para mí no. Usted va a tropezar y romperte una pierna con la luz de las estrellas. Pero ¿por qué entonces Dios dice que la luz es para señales? ¿Sí? Tendrá que también incluir esa luz de la estrella. So all I'm saying here that the starlight, the light from the stars, are included in this mixture of things that light upon the earth. And the question becomes why? what impact does the light of the starlight, have upon the earth? So that again becomes a valid question to ask. Light upon the earth. Okay, 16. And God made two great lights. See? The greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. And he made the stars also. Because the stars are something like, an appendage as it relates to the lesser light, because the lesser light rules the night. He made the stars also. So the stars is almost an admittance that the stars really don't light up things like these other two lights do. But yet, the purpose of the stars are to give light upon the earth, right? And for signs, for seasons, for days, and for years. Así que sabemos que la estrella, aunque no está, es la última de la lista para probarte que la Biblia usa la lista correctamente. This also proof that the Bible lists things purposefully and in logical order, in the sequence that they're supposed to be in, biblically speaking. That the greater light is first, then the lesser light is second, and then the stars also is the third. See? So it is in order of descendancy in terms of what is more important. So what is more important? What is greater? The sun, the one that rules the day. That is the greater light. Established in Torah, period. I don't know what you guys are thinking. No entiendo lo que la gente piensa porque es sol. Ayer estaba un post ahí de una luna, de los que siguen la luna, pero es que Torah y Yahweh señala el sol como primaria. Okay. Eso viene de las antigüedades. You're going to have people say, there's an ancient sun worship here. That you have that contradiction because, of course, the highlight of the Jewish this and that is the moon. It's the second light, not the daylight. That comes from some old ancient Mesopotamian religious thinking. That's what these people say. No. It's just simply God is giving you the rules of the game right here in chapter 1. Okay, so that's what you have to realize. Aquí Dios te está dando las reglas del juego aquí. Estoy hablando de la debate religioso entre si es judaísmo, si es raíces hebreas, si se debe seguir la luna o debemos de estar en el sol. You see, so this is all God has already placed this in its proper perspective, and the thing is that people need to learn what God is saying. La gente tiene que entender y aprender qué es lo que Dios está enseñando. Now, just for a little practice run, if you had just a little mini game here, and you had the 3 cards, right here you had a sun card, you had the moon card, and then you had the stars card, right? Which one would beat the others? Which one would be the better card to have? ¿Sí? Aún en un juego pequeño que se puede crear aquí con este verso nada más, usted puede tener la tarjeta del sol, la tarjeta de luna y la tarjeta de las estrellas. ¿Cuál de los 3 ganaría? Tendría más poder que los otros. Right? So it would be the sun, because this is like a paper, what do you call that? Rock, paper, scissors, or whatever you call that game. Right, the 3 things. So this is almost like something like that. Which is the stronger one? Which is the more applicable one? Right, and depending on its application. But overall, I mean, which one here has its own light? Right. If there was no sun, would you have a moon at night to look at? Would you be seeing a moon at night? You see? These are the issues, because the moon does not produce its own light. It needs the sun. It depends on the sun. It's sun dependent. Quiere decir que la luz de la luna depende en el sol. So the active light, the source of light, is the sun, not the moon. The moon is only a reflection, when it does, of the sunlight. Así que la luna solamente refleja la luz del sol. So, ¿qué te quiere decir eso? You guys figure it out. I have a lot of videos explaining why that is and what's that impact, but it should be clear and evident. Anyway, 15. So 16 we have the greater light. So we just put it the sun card, which I already had. I showed you guys last week that one. Then we have the moon card, and with that you put the greater light. Greater light, and then we have the lesser light. Yeah. And some of you guys are saying, oh, that's mean, Pastor. That's mean. Why are you going to do that? You know, because si tú eres hebreo israelita o hebreo raíz, a ti no te gusta esto, es la Biblia. Okay, porque ustedes quieren que la luna sea suprema. Porque la religión judía, la religión de Israel, es la luna. Depende y rodea la luna. Las instrucciones de Yahweh fue alrededor de la luna. The Hebrew roots religious concept and the Jewish religious experience and their religious liturgy revolves around the moon. See? And they're not going to like this treatment, but this is the Word of God. This is Torah. And the fact is that, you know, the question becomes, what is God teaching with this? You got to realize that when people, and not only that, but what comes first? What's the first thing? What's the first part of the day? ¿Cuál es el primer parte del día? El hebreo sabe, y también ustedes saben. What's the first part of the day? It says so here. The first part of the day is here. It says, and God called the light day, right? And the darkness he called night. But you're thinking that the daytime is first, right? And then nighttime. That's the way we think here in the West. Nosotros pensamos que el día, la luz del día es primero, entonces la noche. No. God says, and the evening and the morning were the first day. Dios dice que la noche primero, y entonces el día, la mañana, es un día. Es oscuro primero, la noche, y entonces la luz es lo último. Tinieblas primero, y entonces luz. So you have darkness first, and then light. That is the day. Not the way we think here in the United States or in modern times, where we have the daytime as being the first thing in the morning, and then each day ends, at the nighttime. That's not the way God said it does. So we're off base. So it's an important teaching that we go back to what God said. It really is. And you really notice the way I those of you who've been listening to my teaching and counseling and whatnot, you'll notice that I preserve the evening and the morning. The evening and the morning is the answer to a lot of your problems. Esto es la respuesta, la solución de muchos de sus problemas. Muchos de sus problemas es porque tú estás trastornado. Los días suyos empiezan mal. Porque tú estás empezando el día cuando está terminando. Because you're starting your day where it ends. Where it's starting to end. And this causes problems. It causes problems when you're a kid going to school. Empieza con cuando tú estás en la escuela, yendo a la escuela por la mañana, y tú piensas entonces que ahí empieza tu día. Ahí, ¿entiendes? Pero en realidad el día empezó ya la noche previa. In reality, the day started the day before, the night before. So your new day, and so if you begin to look at each day as starting when it goes dark, in a few hours now, it's 2 o'clock right now, in 4 hours or so, or a little later because it's summertime so it extends, but when the sun goes down today, that will be tomorrow. And what do you usually do for tomorrow? ¿Qué es lo que tú haces para mañana? En un par de horas, 4 o 5 horas, se va a oscurecer. Y va a ser, bíblicamente, mañana. ¿Qué es lo que tú tienes que hacer para mañana? ¿Sí? So in some ways you do it, but you're not realizing and you don't do it enough. What do you do for tomorrow? You prepare for tomorrow. Usted se prepara para mañana. If you're going to school tomorrow, you prepare for school tomorrow, right? Which means preparing means to study, to do work, to do whatever you owe, work, homework, assignments, and things like that, and to study, to prepare yourself for the next topic, the next thing, to progress. The problem is most of you don't do your homework from today, and then you're not even preparing for tomorrow. You go to sleep. That's the mistake everyone's making. Oh, you guys doing the wrong thing. That's what happened. You don't listen to God here, you don't do the right thing. Ustedes no están haciendo correcto porque no oyen a Dios, no siguen lo que Dios está diciendo aquí. Usted tiene que estar preparándose cuando se oscurece, tiene que prepararse para mañana, el trabajo, la aprendizaje, whatever has to be prepared for. First thing in the day, lo primero en el día que empieza cuando oscurece. So that when you get up in the morning, you have a break. Mira que bueno, los hispanos no descubrieron el dormir en el mediodía. Eso es antiguo. The Spanish people didn't invent sleeping during the middle of the day. That's actually an ancient practice. All right, but we do it. We do it because we sleep at night, right? We're sleeping. That is our midday break. That's when you break for your midday, because that is actually the middle of the day, biblically speaking. So nosotros en la mitad del día dormimos. Qué lindo. Eso está bueno. Right? So we're sleeping it off in the middle of the biblical day. But before we go to bed, there's things to prepare for the following second part of the day. And that's where we're very productive, or we can be productive at night. I'm mostly productive in the morning, the nighttime. Muy productivo en la noche, porque eso es la mañana. Mi mente está así, por la mañana. Pero digo, por el evening is when my mind is, right? Ya en el día, aunque tú tienes fuerza porque dormiste, pero ya hay muchas distracciones. No es tiempo de enfocarse, right? Unless you close yourself in to focus like in a school setting or whatnot. Otherwise, you're solving problems all daylight time long. Así que cuando tú estás en el día, usted está trabajando, está poniendo la mano a hacer en cosas. Si estás estudiando, pues estás estudiando, right? En la escuela, pero muchos de los niños están jugando. A lot of the kids play all day long. But what they're missing out on is that nighttime preparation, which is really important. So, lo que no están haciendo es la preparación por la noche, que es cuando empieza el día. Preparation. Pre. It means before. It's not catching up, which is what most of you guys are doing. Most of you are catching up. Or not. And that makes it worse. But what you're supposed to be doing is preparing. That means going ahead. And that's when you start school. I know school's almost out. For most of you, we're out here already. But when you go back to school, you're supposed to prepare. Right now, summer school, you're supposed to be summer. You're not in summer school, but in summer anyway, yeah, you're taking a break. You have fun, but you should be preparing for your next grade. That means go to the library, go to a bookstore or Amazon, tell your parents, Amazon, get your next level math book. Get it. Why are you waiting? I don't understand these parents. You buy them toys, you buy them balls, buy them the next grade math book. Compra, en vez de estar comprando bolas y juguetes que rompan, compra el nuevo, el grado próximo, que ellos van a empezar en septiembre o en agosto, aquí en agosto. Compra ese año, el nuevo año de matemática. Porque ellos deben estar preparándose. And then, you get this repetition every year. The grade is C, and the D, and then horribly F's. I mean, that's ridiculous. For Christian children, come on. Para niño cristiano, un F. Y vienen a la casa con ese D y ese C. Eso es miseria. Porque gastan todo el tiempo, gastan el verano, no se preparan. Y entonces, cada día, cuando vienen de la escuela, lo gastan también. Y en la noche lo gastan. No se preparan. Esa falta de preparación, que es el resultado F, D, C, por eso. El niño cristiano debe estar en B y A. El B es vergonzoso. El A, punto. Porque se prepara. If you're ahead of the game, you cannot get anything less than a B. You're going to get an A. Is the issue is an A minus, an A, or an A plus? That should be the contention for a Christian child who's learning the right things. Un niño cristiano que aprende las cosas correctamente no debe tener ese problema. Pero los padres tienen que instituir esta enseñanza. The parents have to instill the sound teaching for these kids. You have to have it yourself. And God is giving it to you in the Bible. Y aquí Dios te lo está dando en la Biblia. No entiende. I have to make a game so that you guys can play the game and you can get it. Así que yo tengo que hacer este juego para que cuando ustedes juegan su juego gastando tiempo, entonces pueden entender. So again, it's you have to go. This is the reason. This is the benefit of the game that I'm working on here, because more and more people are wasting time, like I call wasting time. They got time to waste, like they don't have it, but they'll waste it anyway. So they might as well waste it on something that's educating. That, sooner or later, the light in the firmament's going to crack through the hard head over here, and they're going to see the light. They said, wait a minute, it's the evening and the morning. I should have started this last night. That's why I keep running out of time during I can't finish, because I'm not starting when the day begins. Why didn't anyone tell me that? I've been telling you. Okay, but now you had to play the game so you can see the graphic. Así que con el juego van a ver lo gráfico que es esta realidad. All right. So you guys getting it? Now we gotta play the game, Pastor, first. I think the game will make me see the light. Okay, then we put the stars here for 16. All right, 17. And 17 is interesting. 17 dice, and God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. So in this instance, I'm going to go with, and God set them in the firmament. God set them. God set them. And depending on how we make the game mechanic, maybe I'll need the whole thing here. We'll see. So I'm going to copy that whole thing. The game mechanic will determine really if I put the whole title there or a shorter title. You know, we can have the short title, God set them. Podemos tener el título breve, si Dios lo puso, o Dios lo puso en el firmamento, o todo que Dios le puso en el firmamento de los cielos para dar luz sobre la tierra. So, dependiendo cómo desarrollo el juego, la mecánica del juego, va a determinar cuánto del título lo uso o se usa. 18. To rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw it was good. So here we have ruling. Rule over the day. 18. Over day and rule over night. And here, we didn't do it before, but here would be the appropriate time to do the divide light from darkness. Now, when we're developing this, estamos desarrollando así este juego, este trato, estamos bregando también con la alegoría, o sea, ¿qué otra manera podemos usar las palabras de dividir la luz de las tinieblas? ¿Ves? Que eso tiende a tener aplicación. De la luz se puede referir al entendimiento. Okay? Light is often regarded as or utilized as a symbol of understanding. Like I just said, then the light goes off on your head, right? So if you look at it that way, that this rule that divides the light from the darkness, and darkness being a lack of understanding, la oscuridad o la tiniebla siendo la falta de comprensión, la falta de entendimiento. Usted puede ver como un juego utilizando estos términos tiene bastante amplitud. Especially the one that I describí la semana pasada, the one I explained a possible game mechanic last week, how it would use as such a game mechanic as, light being understanding as a possible application. And in the whole game SYMBOLUM, obviously the light will be used in that fashion. Absolutely. So understanding that light is also a reference to understanding this card or a light card, even the sun card, and all that can be used when a need for understanding is had. In other words, that with the solution to a possible situation card, a situational problem, is the application of light. So the sun card could be used another player could have a light card, right? And so it would be an issue between which one is more applicable, the sun card or the light card, right? So there's different circumstances where the sun card would beat out the light card. And there's other instances where the light card beats out the sun card, right? Because of the way it's applied. But again, against Pastor, I'm winning with the sun card all the time, right? Or with the light card, whatever. But again, it depends on the amount of knowledge also that the player has. It's like chess. Chess can be a powerful game if you have powerful players. Now, if you got a weak player and a powerful player, well, the powerful player is going to beat out the weak player every time. And then if you have two weak players, then you'll have pretty much of a good game. But again, a good game of terrible moves, but it moves along. Because an expert looks at it and says, that was a bad move. Oh, and that was even worse. But the two people playing, they're playing chess. Hey, I'm playing chess. I'm almost beating this other guy. But the whole game has been full of blunders. And when an expert or a grandmaster looks at it, says, you guys don't know what you're doing. Let's put it this way. I've seen people play chess like checkers. Okay, that explains it all. Así que yo he visto gente jugando el ajedrez como, ¿cómo se llama ese otro? Tú sabes, los discos rojo y negro. Así, es un diferente juego. All right, 18 is done. 19, we're going to finish this chapter today. And in the evening and the morning were the fourth day. So 19 is the fourth day. $20, and God said, let the waters, here we go again, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life. Otra vez, bring forth, produzca. Let's see it in español, el 20. Y dijo Dios, produzcan, produzcan las aguas, no que yo voy a crear, produzcan las aguas. See, he's not saying that I'm creating. He's telling the waters to produce abundantly the moving creature that hath life. Now, if he's telling the water, we can understand how from the earth, the seed could be in the earth. Now that we understand that verse 1 is a long time ago to verse 2, and verse 2 could have been a gigantic amount of time until verse 3, right? We can understand that. And so the earth would have the seeds from verse 1 in it still, right? But how do you get the waters to bring out abundance? You see what's happening here? The waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature. How is that done? And actually by the same processes, because there's creatures there's creatures in the desert that bury themselves in the sand until it rains. And when it rains, they come out. And it's their time to play and reproduce and whatnot. Then they bury themselves when it gets dry again. That's a reality. Es una realidad. ¿Cómo puede producir las aguas? Porque aún hoy hay criaturas en el desierto que se entierran, están enterrados hasta que llueve bastante. Cuando llueve bastante, ellos salen. You see? Y entonces viven y reproducen y todo antes que se seca todo y vuelven otra vez. Okay? Now that, again, from the waters, what is beneath the waters? It's not just water. ¿Qué hay debajo de las aguas? Hay arena, hay tierra. Recuerde que esto es una bola de tierra. ¿Sí? So, no malentienden, no piensa que allí no hay tierra. Hay tierra debajo del mar. So don't think that there's no earth here. In the water, there is. It's simply underneath the bottom of the sea, there's land. So easily, there could be life from the first time, from verse 1, that buried itself in, or got covered up, or the way they reproduced was in the sand anyway, in the ground, and simply everything froze over, no sun, everything froze solid, everything stopped. And now that God is warming everything up, the sun is out, right, in form, and everything starts to warm up, and God gives the instruction to bring out the stuff that was in the water, in the land underneath the water, to come out and produce abundantly the moving creature that have life, because he's ordering the waters to give it out. Later, when the dead rise, I'm talking about in Revelation and stuff, they come up from the ground. The idea is that the dead rise from the ground as if the grave gave up her dead. Like it's, see the biblical language, the grave gives up her dead. Here the waters bring forth. You understand that? So there's something there. The point is there's something there, and it's no longer staying there. It's coming out. And here it has life. Así que aún en la Biblia habla ahorita, después en Apocalipsis y en otras áreas habla de que la tumba suelta a sus muertos. En el día de resurrección, entonces las tumbas se vacían. Right? Y entonces la idea es que hay algo en la tumba. Hay algo original que brota. And the same idea is here with the production of this. But I want you to pay close attention here, because this is where this is where the trick I was talking about before, the trick happens. It's not really a trick, but it tricks a lot of people to not realize what's actually happening. So I'm going to show you that. And it's not a trick by God. It's just because people are dumb. You make the assumptions, and then you don't even notice that it's being debunked. But we're going to show you here. So first, let's do the cards for 20. Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that have life. So we'll take that. That's 20. Let the water bring forth abundantly the moving creature that have life, and fowl that may fly above the earth. That may fly. And we'll do that. So we added that to our listing. And then the fowl. Now 21. Now this is it. Now let's read 20 again so you can catch it. Vamos a leer 20 otra vez. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly. Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that have life. Right? So he said, let the waters bring forth creature that has life, and fowl. Right? Let's read in Spanish. Y dijo Dios, produzcan las aguas seres vivientes. ¿Ok? Lo dijo Dios. Seres vivientes que produzcan las aguas. Y aves que vuelan sobre la tierra en la abierta expansión de los cielos. ¿Está bien? Dios ya ordenó que produzcan las aguas la vida. Criaturas vivientes, seres vivientes. Now let's look at verse 21. And God created. Hello. Created. What? great whales. See? And every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly as well, right? After their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind, and God saw that it was good. Now, there's comments that when it says and God created, that is what God was doing in verse 20. Okay? That was what God was doing in verse 20. Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that have life. But again, that is not the posit that I show from Genesis 1 with verse 2 and verse 3 that is being inferred here. And again, and what do I have to prove it? Why is what I'm saying more provably right than the common belief? Because simply I have science. That's why I have proof. See, that's the reason. La razón que la interpretación mía es más correcto que la interpretación general que tienen las iglesias y la gente creyente es porque yo tengo ciencia conmigo. Yo tengo evidencia. Okay? So, la evidencia son los fósiles. La evidencia son no se pueden discutir. Son huesos de animales que no existen ahora. Alright? Que estaban en un tiempo que no es el tiempo de la Biblia. Que existían antes del tiempo de la Biblia, porque la Biblia no habla de ello. You know? So, again, what we have is that scientific proof of animals that existed that are not mentioned in the Bible. They're not referred to. They're not regarded in the Bible at all. Where did they come from? See, that's evidence. That's proof. See, and science itself, the way life happens on Earth, and the way life is preserved, even in the most dire circumstances, proves or lends support. Let's just say it that way. If you don't like proof, is too strong for you. It lends support to the survivability of creatures through a cataclysm, such as a complete loss of the sun, an obliteration of the sun, a covering of the earth in water and or ice, or a combination, right? And total darkness, void and without form, for who knows how long, totally frozen, and possibly with some areas of liquid still, but totally entrapped in ice, which science confirms is possible, and that they found it, evidence for it in Antarctica. That's a way that life could have been preserved even in a total ice age, which they also say occurred. Así que la evidencia científica está más a mi lado que de otro modo, porque la ciencia está verificando que vida puede ser preservada en hielo y en oscuridad total que hubo en un tiempo en la historia de la Tierra, como ellos han descubierto con estudios en la Antártica. Ellos han sacado hielo desde lo más profundo y sacado esos elementos, y han visto, comprobable, que la Tierra pasó por un tiempo de hielo completo y que sobrevivieron a alguna vida
atrapados por ese tiempo. We know that creatures have evolved or adapted. Okay, we don't have to go that far. We have creatures that have adapted to cave life in modern times. Y tenemos animales que se adoptaron en tiempo moderno a vivir en caverna, que nunca, que se cayeron por un roto o lo que sea, y como peces, y no pueden salir de una caverna, y ellos han estado allí debajo de la tierra y pariendo y viviendo, y están ahí todavía ciegos. Son ciegos porque no hay luz, pero ellos han adaptado a vivir sin luz, ciego, y eran antes del sol, vivían antes donde había sol, pero ya están ciegos porque no hay luz en la caverna, en la cueva. So eso lo podemos ver nosotros hoy día. So these things we can see today. Animals that adapt to the darkness of a cave where they cannot go and return to sunlight, they adapt to darkness. They are blind, and future generations are born blind, right? Highlighting the other senses so that they can find food and survive. That is an adaptational ability that life organisms have. So there's no doubt that the life that God created on the earth in chapter 1 and verse 1, that some of them could have survived the cataclysm that is described, that the remnants of are described in verse 2, and that God reforms the earth from verse 3 on, and then says to the water and to the earth to produce, to bring forth. See, that fits with the scientific record and the biblical record. Eso cabe bien con los datos científicos y la declaración bíblica. Lo otro no. Simple as that. The other argument, the creation story, the traditional creation story, does not fit. It doesn't fit. Either verse 2 is not from the God of perfection. That's the first problem that you have. And then you have the fossil record. You can't not disregard fossils. That's evidence. You can't disregard that. Usted no puede negar los fósiles. Es el problema con la manera tradicional cristiana de la vista de la creación. Okay, so we're running out of time. Estamos terminando ahora. Let's get into this, the great will. So, again, so the bringing forth and creation, although some people say there are interchangeable terms, I'm not interchanging them, because the fossil record tells me that they're not interchangeable. They are exactly what went on. Many creatures were brought forth and others were created. Simply, that is what the Bible is saying, plain English. And in the Hebrew, it has a different word. There's not the same word. Different word. So something different there. And the scientific record supports that it is indeed separate. It is a different thing. So God told the waters to bring forth life abundantly, the moving creature, whatever the will of God was, because that's telling us what he didn't bring up all the life there was. No. Whatever was there, whatever was preserved, right, he brought out. And then he created new things. That's what science shows. The evidence is that you have animals that got extinct, and then all of a sudden, new animals appeared. Because you hear it all the time. New animals appeared. La ciencia enseña o se ve que animales fueron extinguidos y no aparecieron más, y de momento surge unas nuevas criaturas. And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. Again, you weren't there, I wasn't there, but based on our understanding of God and the difference in terminology, because it would have been easy for God to just simply say, and God created the animals, every moving creature that have life, like he said here. He didn't have to use another words here. He used different words. Bring forth, and then here, created. See? He used the words. And as I always say, God does things on purpose. It's not an accident. Estas son palabras diferentes. A propósito, no es un accidente. And then, okay, so that's 21. So 21, great whale. So we got great whale. Oh my. Of course, in Hebrew, you got to look at the Hebrew. It's obviously totally is big. It's going to be something big. But we're not going into the Hebrew here for this now. We're just doing a King James Version trading card game. As simple as that. And every living creature that moveth. And we'll call that living creatures, right? We did the fowl already, so we'll leave that. And that's that. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful. 22. Yes, even that gets a card. Be fruitful. And multiply. (23) And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. Ok, ahora estamos, esta fue el quinto día, okay. Ser fructíferos y multiplicados, el verso 22, so tenemos esas tarjetas para hacer. And then 24, and God said, let the earth bring forth. Here we go again. Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and the beast of the earth after his kind, and it was so. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything. So you will say, well, he's saying that he's making them, which is another word also in Hebrew, that he's making them here, and then here he's also saying that the earth bring forth. But the assumption is that the two things are regarding the same exact animals. That's the assumption that you guys make. I'm not making that assumption. See? Because science shows me that there's some animals like this and some animals like that. Simply the classification of animals. There are different types. There's different genesis and different, species. So some species may have been brought forth, and just as easily, God could have created or made what made means species that weren't before. Now for the new reformed earth, the new created earth, recreated earth, now we have these new types of cattle. Because again, like you have a different type of elephant before, right? Remember the mastodon, is it? That's a prehistoric elephant. Today we don't have any. Today we have the modern day elephant, right? So let's change this into elephants so you can understand what I'm talking about. Lo que tú entiendes que yo estoy entendiendo, o lo que estoy diciendo, vamos a cambiar esto de vaca a elefante. Y el elefante prehistórico que tenemos fósiles se llama un mastodon. Okay, so let's do it that way. And so let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, right? And let's say the elephant and creeping thing, but and the beast of the earth after his kind, and it was so. All right, and it was so. So aquí deja que la tierra produzca toda criatura viviente, ser viviente. Y aquí dice claro que son bestias, como animales como si fueran vacas y animales grandes así. Pero lo que queremos enseñarle es que esto podía ser de lo previo, de lo prehistórico. So voy a usar la palabra mastodon. So let's just say, let the earth bring forth every living creature after his kind, mastodon and creepy thing, and beast of the earth after his kind, and it was so. And 25, and God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and the elephant after their kind. So even though I made I gave you those two words, the two related creatures, okay, that we changed out for cattle, but it just to show you that what I'm talking about and that I'm saying that the scripture is inferring is that there were pre-existing creatures that God brought back. And you don't need to, and some of you might say, no, that's not right, but they're still prehistoric fish. You can't say that I'm not right when the proof is go fish. That's another game, by the way. If they found a prehistoric fish in South Africa, en el sur del África, encontraron un pez prehistórico que se pensaba solo teníamos fósiles y ahora apareció. So this was a fish that was thought to be extinct because all we had was the fossil. Yet a fisherman caught one. So it is not impossible. What you think is impossible is not. It's just you don't know what's really happening. Lo que tú pensabas que era imposible no es imposible. Lo que pasa es que tú no sabes lo que está pasando. So, solo estoy diciendo que la evidencia de la estructura tiende más a la manera que yo lo estoy elaborando y menos a la tradicional que la mayoría de gente postula. That's all I'm saying. Y mi manera, my way of understanding the scripture shows us today's science. That's the big thing about it. Lo grande de lo mío, de lo que yo estoy diciendo, es que la forma mía expresa la ciencia de hoy. Se ve la evidencia fósil y las que están vivos todavía. Expresa esto, lo que estoy diciendo. Eso es evidencia. Tú no puedes negar la evidencia, lo que es evidente. All right, so you can beat a dead horse with that, but anyway. Okay, so we have the 5th day, then the 24th, we have a living creature. I'm going to put this down real quickly. Living creature. We're going to finish right after this. I'm going to finish with man. 26, so that's what we'll finish with today. Living creature, and we'll put in cattle for now, but I am going to do a little more research in the Hebrew. Creepy thing.
we have 25, and God made the beast of the earth right after. So 25 is almost the same, but he says the beast of the earth. Beast of the earth. With for trading card game is wonderful. Beast of the earth. Okay, and cattle, and then again we'll review this later on, and everything that creepeth. Okay, now we're at 26, and here we're finished for today. Aquí vamos a terminar para hoy, 26. And let us make man in our image, man in our image, after our likeness. And that's how that will be titled. Wonderful card. Man in our image and our likeness, okay? Let him have dominion. I'm going to also put the dominion card. Oh my, we're going to be into some serious teaching over the cattle. So we have to make sure that we have fish of the sea. I don't know if we have that in an earlier when the sea was put together. Let's see, let the word be follow the earth, because it didn't mention it. So here's the fish of the sea. Fish of the sea, fowl of the air we have, and over the cattle, and over all the earth. And we have the earth already, and over every creepy thing we have that creepeth over the earth. So that's it. And then 27, God created male and female. And so we'll have that for 27. Okay, 28 is be fruitful and dominion again. So we'll wrap that up during the week and get into some images. Okay, so that's it for today. I hope that this has been interesting for some of you. I know that we got some people coming in and asking questions today. Amazing how a weird topic like trading card game brings in an interesting question that we have. But hey, God knows everything, right? I mean, He's the one who produced. Have the internet produce someone to ask this question. So it brought forth. That was from YouTube, by the way. YouTube brought forth a question from the audience. Así que alguien preguntó en YouTube, so produjo YouTube esta pregunta de hoy en la lección de hoy. En esta lección es muy fuera de la caja, ¿no? No son, como decir, una enseñanza bíblica así tradicional, pero de todo modo hablamos Biblia, la verdad de Dios, amén. Y otra vez, esto es celebrando los 50 años en el Señor de mi persona. Y en este año, he dedicado este año a producir nuevos recursos para la predicación, la extensión del Evangelio, el ministerio de ayudar a la gente, de las personas. Y esto es parte de un juego que la iglesia va a tener para alcanzar el mundo con la ayuda y con enseñanzas a través de estos juegos. So this is a game that being created in my 50th year in the Lord, that we're celebrating this year, creating new resources every month so that the church has a patrimony. I leave it for the church, that the church develop further and extend it and use it in the extension of the gospel and the ministry of the grace of God and through Christ through all the world. And a game is like one of those things. The games are big. A lot of people play them, almost everyone, and there's no reason why they shouldn't play this game. This game's going to be fun. All right, and again, this is just one of all the chapters in the Bible, and then it's part of the SYMBOLUM game. So the SYMBOLUM game is an evolution, because as each chapter is done, those new cards are added to the SYMBOLUM game, and the SYMBOLUM game continues to evolve. It's playable with more cards. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'll see you next week as we continue this production here. Dios le bendiga a todos. Again, as usual,
el que ha sentido de parte del Señor, ha sido tocado en este ministerio o piensa que este ministerio debe de seguir sin interrupciones, para adelante, con fuerza, pues puede compartir con este ministerio usando estos enlaces, cualquiera que te either link that you would like. Even crypto is being accepted to help this ministry continue, this continued development. Amen. According to what the Lord puts in your heart, and we appreciate it. Just like the questions you asked today, we appreciate your taking a moment and sharing. God bless you, and God keep you, and until next time.